Alright, Androxus. Androxus, I'd say is a solid A, I'd say probably a solid S tier. I think he's one of the best DPS picks, especially going into OB45. This is, by the way, for OB44, not for OB45. But even for OB45, I think he's a solid S tier. He has potential to go up higher, honestly, if we're talking OB45. But for now, I'd say he's S tier. Barrack, I think, is also S tier. He's like, you want to have him early pick, like we're talking second, maybe third pick, pretty much every time. This, by the way, is for competitive play, so take it with a grain of salt going into casuals and stuff. This is for competitive play only. It's pretty much the same for ranked and casual, but you can take it with a little grain of salt when you're going into your casual and ranked games. Bomb King, I'd say Bomb King is A tier. I think he's a decent DPS pick. He's pretty flexible. You can pick him against pretty much anything. The issue I have with him is that he struggles a lot on certain maps. Like, you wouldn't pick him on Fish Market really. He can struggle there pretty hard. Whereas he's much better on something like Surf and Beach. Whereas a champ like Andrew, at least right now, is good on pretty much every map. So I'd say Bomb King is a solid A tier. You can definitely pick him. You can pick him into 90% of matchups, but when you do pick him, it's still a risky pick. It's unconfirmed damage. Like, it's not consistent damage like you have with an Androxus or a Cassie or even a Victor. So he's definitely a good pick. I would say he's pretty neutral across the board. Buck, personally, a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I think Buck is A+ tier. I think Androxus is better than Buck is. Buck is team comp dependent. You can't just pick him blindly and expect everything to work out, whereas you can do that with Androxus in my opinion. Buck would be on the same tier if you're just comparing flat out on both of their good maps. I think Andrew and Buck are pretty much the same, but since Buck is more map dependent and more team comp dependent, I would say that Buck is A+ tier. Even though, obviously, again, in like casuals and ranked play, I think Buck is as good, if not better, than Androxus. But I would say, in competitive play at least, he's not as good. He's not as good as Androxus. Just because you have to pick team comps around him, you have to play him with certain team comps. If you just blindly pick him, it's not going to work as well as an Androxus. Androxus can fit into pretty much any team comp. Cassie, I think Cassie goes with Bomb King. She's pretty solid. She's a bit more team comp dependent. You don't really want to blindly pick her, and she's much better on some maps than others. Like Surf and Beach, she's a bit worse on because you don't have option to go up on high ground compared to something like Frozen Guard, where she's really good. She's definitely better against tank picks. If we're talking all carries, I wouldn't like blindly pick Cassie as our basic carry, but I think she can be pretty solid. She's definitely like a solid last pick. Drogos, oh, awkward. Drogos goes in A+ tier. Again, not a blind pick like you would with Androxus. Fills the same role as Buck in that it's a little bit comp dependent, and I personally wouldn't just blind pick it like that, especially with Androxus being higher tier. Just based on the champs that are high tier right now, I don't think Drogos fits too well to be like S or S+ tier. He does a lot of damage. It's pretty good consistent damage as well. He's good against the current meta of stacking a lot on point, double tank, and just in general his ult is very valuable. But again, I wouldn't just blind pick it into anything. Still map dependent, like picking him on Frozen Guard, Fish Market, Timbermill, the more open maps, not the best. Whereas Stonekeep, Jaguar Falls, Serpent, he can do really well. So I'd say A+ tier. Potentially up to S tier if Androxus or Buck get a little bit nerfed. Eevee, I'd say is a solid B tier right now. She's pretty fucking shit. She can't really do anything with the new wormhole, and there's really no reason to pick her. Like, the only reason she was really picked over, say, Bomb King or Pip or Drogos in the past was because that she was just the best blast damage. That's why she was so highly prioritized. It's kind of the same thing with Drogos. Even though he was weaker after his nerfs, he was still picked because blast damage was so important. But with the Haven and Blast Shields nerfed, and they're not like you're not prioritizing Haven and Blast Shields as much over say red cards now, I wouldn't say it's as valuable to pick up that necessary blast damage. And even if you do need that blast damage, Drogo and Bomb King fill the role much better. Even a Pip potentially fills the role much better. So I wouldn't say Eevee's very good right now. She can fit into some comps, and I could see her being picked in future patches in maybe the next week of tournament play. She could be picked up a little bit just because people are used to not playing against her, so you might try to throw someone off with it. But for now, B tier, only picked under very specific circumstances, nothing more. Fernando, I'd say Fernando's B tier as well. He's the worst of the tanks right now. He has issues with his shield. Obviously, that's unintentional, but he has a buggy shield. Having Drogo, Bomb King, Barrack just makes it just makes his life so much harder. He can't really contribute to the fights as much as any of the other tanks can, and he doesn't have the same pressure that he used to. It's so easy, like he's so dependent on his shield that the second the enemy team gets Wrecker and Cauterize, you can't do anything. And that's going to happen a lot now that Wrecker and Cauterize are prioritized much more. So I'd say Fernando's B tier, can be picked potentially on certain maps against certain comps, but generally speaking, wouldn't recommend it. Grok, I'd say solid S tier. He could be blindly picked. He does very well against the champions that are high tier right now. Obviously, he has a lot of damage and a lot of CC on his right click, and he can. The main thing here, just like the Barrack and Jox, is he can be blindly picked early on in the team comp, and you're not going to suffer very much. Teams, depending on how you use it, he can be better or worse, but he can fill almost any role on the team. He can be a bit more supportive, a bit more backline, or he can be very heavy on the front line and straight up damage. I wouldn't quite put him on S+ tier. I don't think he's that good, but he has potential. If the meta changes slightly with a bit less shields, I could definitely see him going up. But with the barricade being so strong and McCullough shield being pretty strong right now, I wouldn't say that he's the best pick. He's just a solid S tier. Grover, I'd say he's maybe B+ tier. I think he's better than Eevee and Fernando, and he fits into more team comps, but he's not good enough where you can pick him consistently. You're not going to see him picked up in very many drafts. He's more of a situational pick. When you do pick him in good situations for him, he can do a lot, and the root especially, it can change a whole team fight if you hit the root properly on the right target. So he is definitely a good option, definitely a good pocket pick if you can play it well. Other than that, I wouldn't say he does much. His healing isn't on par with Ying or Snake, so I wouldn't suggest picking up outside of specific strategies, specific team comps. But he definitely fits into more situations than Eevee and Fernando do. Kinessa, I think, goes along with Bomb King and Cassie. I think Kinessa's more between B+ and A. I think she's better than Grover in that you can pick her into more situations, and when you do pick her, she's more lethal. You saw in the tournament playing against Wolves, we were able to pick up the Kinessa on Frozen Guard, and the Kinessa did a shit ton of work. So when you can pick her, it will straight up just change the game. It will change the whole pace of the game, and she will dominate that game. Whereas a Grover won't do that as much. However, she's not able to be picked as much as a Bomb King or a Cassie. So really, I'd want to put her in between A tier and B+ tier, in that she doesn't fit into as many comps, but she's also better than Grover in that when she does fit into a comp, she fits in very well. McCullough, I would say S+ tier right now. A lot of people might not agree, just because you have so many shields, but in the current state, McCullough will just straight up, like, he can just turn a team fight. One hook on a 6-7 second cooldown, depending on your build, is just going to, every single time you hook someone, there is potential for a kill. If you can play the McCullough properly, and if your team can play around the McCullough properly, you're close to guaranteed a kill every single time. The only option for them to avoid that would be picking a lot of tanks, in which case McCullough is a bit worse, but like, it's really just a Torvald shield that can save anyone from getting hooked. The main thing about McCullough I'd want to point out is that he's good against every type of comp, which is why he's so highly prioritized. He's good against tank comps because he's one of the few that can actually disrupt the tank comps. just like Grok can, for instance. But he's also really good against mobility or carry comps when you're running the tank comp, because he's also giving you the only option to potentially kill people, force people onto the point. So I'd say McCullough is solid S+ tier. Like, there's no reason not to try to get McCullough as early as possible, in my opinion at least. I think Shaolin A+ tier. So Shaolin is a little bit team dependent. You need to be able to play around it properly. In the current state, I would say the meta is pretty much having 2 tanks, a support, and then either 2 backline carries or 1 backline carry and 1 frontline carry. So that would be like a Shaolin for backline carry, and then a Bomb King or an Androxus for your frontline carry, who can go in, who can go deep and cause a ruckus basically. So I'd say Shaolin fits in really well with that sort of comp, and when you pick him into these more defensive, more passive comps, he can do really well. And then not only that, just like Drogo, he fits really well against the double tank meta. He can shred shields, he can shred tanks especially well. So he just fits into the meta really well compared to a Kinessa or a Cassie, who can't shred the tanks as much, but still has the opportunity to flank around and make stuff happen in the team fights. Shaolin's more just like, if you pick Shaolin, you're gonna be okay. Like, the Shaolin can do okay against pretty much anything. He doesn't really have any hard counters. He doesn't have anything that can really stop him from doing his thing. So solid A+ tier. There's a few situations where I'd say Shaolin isn't really, not that he's not pickable, but he doesn't serve the same purpose as like an Androxus does. Like Serpent Beach, he can be really good, but he can also get punished really hard on Serpent Beach for not being able to get up on high ground. So he's not as versatile as an Androxus or a Grok is, but still a solid pick overall. Snake, I would also say, is a solid A+ tier. Snake and Ying are both interesting because at the end of the day, you basically have to have one of the two. I would say Ying is much better than Snake in the current state, just because it's such a, like, it's so easy to get stuff done with Ying. It's so easy to just like put an illusion down and not worry about it. The main difference is that Snake ult happens to be very good in this meta. If you want to break apart the point stacks, the tanks, Snake ult is extremely valuable there compared to a Ying ult. But overall, Ying still out heals Snake a lot. Like, if you have a Snake and a Ying in opposite teams, you're going to, the Ying, if they both have really good games, Ying is going to out heal the Snake by miles. Like, if we're talking both the healers having an excellent game, the Ying can heal for up to like 150, 160k, whereas the Snake's only gonna have get up to 100k. The only time that a Snake really out heals Ying is if your team is winning, if you're able to snowball really hard, if you get your cauterize up earlier. But overall, Ying just straight up out heals a Snake. But it's still an interesting thing because you do have to have one of the two. So it's kind of hard to place the Snake, because even if they pick the Ying, you're still going to have to prioritize picking the Snake just because you need a healer. So it's a bit hard to place him, but I'd say, just off the top of my head, I'd say Snake, just based on Snake alone, is probably a solid A+ tier. He fits well into the meta. He's able to counter the point stack quite a bit, and he's good consistent healing. So I'd say he's pretty solid A+ tier. I think Tyra's a bit weaker. Tyra has potential options, just like Grover. You can fit into situational comps with a Tyra. Not as versatile as some of the other carries, but definitely has potential and can definitely do well against some picks. Like Tyra can do very well against a Barrack, for instance. So I'd say that if you're going to pick up Tyra, make sure you have a very specific comp for it. If you do have a specific comp, it can work out very well, but it doesn't happen very often. This is for OB45, OB44, not OB45. We'll do another one for OB45 once that patches out. Torvald, I think, is a solid A+ tier. I think Torvald fits into a lot of comps, which is a nice thing. It's kind of all the tanks are going to be picked, sort of. There's always one tank that's going to be left out, and in most cases, that's going to be Fernando. Usually, you're going to have 2 tanks on each team. I think if you just look at it blindly, I think Torvald does a bit worse than Barrack. He's a good pick in the meta. He fits well into a lot of comps, so he's A+ tier. That's all I really have to say about him. Maeve. I think Maeve is A tier. She's pretty solid. She fits into a decent amount of comps, but she doesn't like excel too much in like against certain comps like Kinessa does. But she's definitely like Cassie. Like she's a good option for a last pick if you see that they have a comp where Maeve can do well in. She will definitely perform well. And it's not a good blind first pick or anything, but there's definitely option for it for picks later on. Victor, I'd say Victor is also A tier. He's a solid carry. He can do a lot. One of the nice things about Victor is that he spreads cauterize so well. He's able to tag everyone. He's able to make sure that everyone's staying cauterized all the time. So I would say Victor's a solid pick. I think has less relevant damage than any of the other characters in A tier, but I don't think I think while he's not as good as the other characters in A tier, maybe about the same as Maeve, I think he fits into the meta so well with either Wrecker or Cauterize that it makes him more viable than he might otherwise be. Skye, I would say, is just like Eevee and Fernando, B tier. There's no real reason to pick Skye. Like, the only option I would see is maybe if you have a very, very specific pocket strat, but honestly speaking, there's just no reason to pick Skye. Like she's just the same as she's always been. She's gonna get punished. She's going to go in and she's gonna get headshot by an Androxus, or she's gonna try to kill the Kinessa and she's gonna just get blown up because you have teamwork. This is again for competitive play. There's just no reason to pick Skye. You're gonna get punished for doing it. Ying, I would say along with McCullough is S plus tier, at least for now. OB45 this might change, but for now Ying is S plus tier. Her heals are just too impactful. The main reason is that it denies so many options for the enemy team. If you pick a Shaolin and a Ying together, it's so hard for a Buck or an Androxus to actually get to the Shaolin and punish that. So she just allows for her carries to carry even harder, basically. While Snake might still be a better pocket healer for a tank, it's so easy to just put an illusion with your carry and then just leave them. Like you can just let them be, and it's such an important and impactful thing that you're able to do on Ying, where you can just completely control the pace of a game by deciding how you want to pace yourself. If you want to push up, you can pop your ult, you can go in a bit deeper and put your illusions aggressively, or if you want to play more passively, you can just pop an illusion back with your carry and just focus on doing a lot more damage when they jump in. Pip, I would say, is a solid A tier. I think he fits in with a decent amount of comps. He has some issues with resilience being a viable option right now. If you're playing Pip into multiple tanks, you're probably going to see a resilience come out, but even then he can still do a lot of damage. You can pick up the mega health potion. It is fully possible, but if you pick the damage, the catalyst card, then you can actually do a shit ton of damage, and it is worth it to pick up Pip in a lot of cases. He's just like Victor too. He spreads cauterize really well. He's just a solid damage carry all around, I would say. The only reason he's not higher, I would say, is because of the resilience pickups right now. It's very easy to just completely counter his chicken, which is a big deal, since that's a lot of the reason why you'd pick Pip in the first place. So if it wasn't for resilience, I'd say he might be maybe in between A and A plus. But for right now, I'd say he's a solid A tier. He fits in with pretty much any comp. If you need a backline or mid-range carry, then I'd say Pip is a pretty solid bet. And then lastly, we have Ruckus. Ruckus is in an interesting spot where he is pretty good and he is a viable option, but he's not as good as Varric or Torvald or McCullough. I think he can be in specific team comps. He can definitely be better than a Torvald might, and especially on certain maps, but he is very map dependent. He is very team comp dependent. Like, you can't just blindly pick the Ruckus early, and you never would pick the Ruckus early. Ruckus is usually the last tank that's picked, if anything. He's more of a last pick option. You can wait. If you pick McCullough early, then you can wait until your last pick to decide if you want another carry or if you want a Ruckus. And that's why he's A tier. He definitely can do well against the tanks, and he does pretty well in this meta, but he just doesn't, there's no reason to blind pick him early on. I would say if you're going to pick a Ruckus, wait for it until later in the drafting phase and figure out how you want the Ruckus to fit into your comp, if you want the Ruckus or if you want a carry like Victor or maybe a Bomb King or a Cassie. So yeah, that's it for the tier list. This is just my opinion for competitive play in OB44. In OB45, things are probably going to get mixed up a little bit. We'll have a new champ and everything. So I will make another tier list once OB45 is out.